All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, by which I mean back on the trade block, looking around, trying to find those pieces that can put us over the top. And today we're going to be talking about one specific player who may very well be on the trade block, Xavien Howard of the Miami Dolphins. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this situation. I'm sure you guys have heard the rumors of him wanting to be traded to somewhere that will give him a new contract. And you probably heard him connected to the Seattle Seahawks. So I want to give my thoughts on this and dissect whether or not this is realistic and whether or not this would be something that actually helps move this team in the right direction and helps us get closer to a Super Bowl. So basically, the short version is that Xavien Howard is on a contract paying him X amount of money. And Byron Jones got a contract from the Dolphins last year that is paying him Y amount of money. And Y is more than X. And Xavien Howard outplayed Byron Jones last year, so he feels like, you know, maybe X should be bigger than Y because I played better than him. So he's looking for a new contract. Now, the interesting thing here is that Xavien Howard's contract that he signed was a 6-year deal, and he signed it 2 years ago. So he has 4 years left on it, but he already wants a new contract. And that's a bit of a surface level analysis. We'll go into exactly why he might be thinking along these terms in a little bit. But the short version is he wants more money. He feels like he's better than Byron Jones. He doesn't like that he has to play right next to a guy like Byron Jones who is not as good as him or didn't play as well as him last year, and that he makes less money than him. So he may hold out and he may request a trade, according to this PFT article. So, should the Seahawks be interested? Okay, before I talk about trading for Xavien Howard, I want to say one thing in the positive. This is a little more like it. This is a little more like it in terms of the kind of cornerback that I would want to make a blockbuster trade for. Not Stephon Gilmore, who is at the age where it's very believable he's about to fall off a cliff, and he already kind of fell off that cliff last year. Xavien Howard is coming off his best season. He's about to turn 28, which is not crippling. He just made the All-Pro team, played in all 16 games, 10 interceptions, leading the league, 20 pass deflections, leading the league. Excellent season, playing the ball, taking it away, forced a fumble, 51 tackles. Solid work as a coverage cornerback. 10 interceptions is really hard to do in the modern NFL, I feel like, and he pulled it off. And if you take a look at his coverage metrics, he got targeted a lot, 101 targets. So you might be able to point to a guy like Byron Jones and say, hey, if Byron Jones wasn't doing his job on the other side, maybe you wouldn't get targeted so much and you wouldn't get so many opportunities to get interceptions. But the dude did work on those 101 times he was targeted. He only allowed 52 completions. 719 yards is quite a bit, but that's something you have to be willing to live with when you're talking about a guy who has 10 interceptions. And 4 touchdowns allowed is similarly something that you should be willing to live with if you are going to have 10 interceptions. So he's a great player by any reasonable metric. 6 missed tackles on 51 total tackles is a reasonable number for a cornerback. I think that puts him in the same category as guys like Prime Richard Sherman and other Prime, I think Prime Patrick Peterson as well. That's perfectly acceptable. And PFF also backs up all these things that I'm saying. They like him a lot as well. They have him at a PFF grade of 87.3. So this is the kind of player I would want to make a blockbuster trade for. Somebody who still has big years left, not somebody who probably already had his big years and is already showing signs that the party's over. Now, let's take a look at Xavien Howard's contract to explain exactly why we're here. 2 years ago, Xavien Howard signed a 5-year, $75 million contract with the Dolphins. And he has 4 years left on this deal, 21, 22, 23, 24. And cap hits of those 4 years are approximately what, 52 million, 53 million, something like that. So it sounds kind of weird that he's asking for a new contract with 4 years left, but if you take a look at the dead cap hit in 2022, you can see that he's basically on a 1 year deal. He wants a new contract because he knows this is basically a contract year for him, because the Dolphins moving on from him in 2022 is kind of a slam dunk, owed only 2.8 million compared to a 14.4 million dollar cap hit. Okay, so that all makes sense. My first impression was, wow, this guy is kind of being an ass, right? He's kind of being an ass. He's asking for a new contract with 4 years left. You're not supposed to do that. 1 year left, absolutely. 2 years, maybe. But when you have 3 or more years left on your deal, you honor your contract, right? But yeah, the circumstances make it a little different. However, let's do some math here and explain why I really don't think this can work and why I don't really think we should be talking about it. All right, Byron Jones. Byron Jones signed away from the Dallas Cowboys, was a Miami Dolphin his first year in Miami last year. He played 14 games, had 2 interceptions, 4 pass deflections, which is kind of alarming, 37 tackles, coverage numbers. He gave up more yards in coverage than Xavien Howard, despite being targeted far less and playing in fewer games. He gave up 5 touchdowns. He gave up a QB rating of 108 when targeted. He missed 9 tackles, which, given his total number of tackles, is not good for a corner. Yeah, Byron Jones was kind of not very good in 2020. And PFF kind of backs this up as well. 63.6, that's okay. It's really nothing special. Yeah, Byron Jones, not a great 2020 season. And what is Byron Jones's contract? Okay, let's go over here to Spotrac. Byron Jones last year signed a 5 year, $82.5 million contract with the Miami Dolphins. So Xavien Howard's contract gave him about $15 million a year. Byron Jones's contract is giving him about $16.5 million a year. So if the jumping off point for Xavien Howard wanting this new contract is partially, I'm better than my teammate, I want to get paid more than him, I don't think he should be making more money than me a year when I had such a better season, which he did, as we just went over. He clearly had a much better season. So if Byron Jones is making 16.5 million a year and this dude is trying to say, hey, I think I should get more than that, how much more do you think he wants? Are we talking like 18 million a year? Or are we talking Jalen Ramsey 20 million a year? I mean, he's got a clear leg to stand on, right? 10 interceptions in one season is no joke. So, how much money do you think this dude wants? And before you ask yourself, do you want to trade for Xavien Howard? Ask yourself, do you actually want to pay him that much? Um, as far as I'm concerned, Pete Carroll's already kind of pushing it. The so-called defensive back whisperer, the defensive back guru, who has made his bones in the NFL for the last decade plus as a Seahawks head coach by turning trash into treasure at cornerback and safety, has had to trade the farm for Jamal Adams. He had to trade for Quandre Diggs. He tried to trade for Quentin Dunbar. It didn't work out. And I'm watching this and going, okay, if we get good players, then we get good players. I'm not going to be mad about getting good players, not by a long shot. But if you're the defensive back guru, why are we giving up all these assets, and why do we have to go to trades in order to get quality defensive backs? This is supposed to be your realm. So we know we have to extend Jamal Adams, and we know we're going to 99.9% of the time. So do you want to give Jamal Adams his, what I estimated to be about 17, $18 million a year, and then you want to give Byron Jones the same? and you want to have a secondary with those two guys, plus maybe Quandre Diggs earning 8 to 10 million a year at least if you want to bring him back, you're going to be spending more money on your secondary than you're going to be spending on your quarterback plus offensive line at a certain point. And we just went through a season where we went into September thinking, hey, we got the best secondary in the league, and we got completely roasted, and we found out the hard way it doesn't really matter how good your secondary is if you don't have good pass rushers. And once we got Carlos Dunlap and the pass rush fell into place, then suddenly, hey, our secondary, even with lesser pieces like DJ Reed off the scrap heap, it suddenly looked a lot better. So I think this is silly. I think this is silly to even suggest this. Xavien Howard, the reason why the Dolphins want to move on from him despite his amazing season is because they know they can't pay Byron Jones and Xavien Howard all that money. They know that they can't have two cornerbacks making that much money. Well, I ask you this. Is paying a strong safety and a cornerback that much money any smarter? And possibly stacking the free safety contract that could be 8 to 12 million for all we know on top of that, when we've already seen proof that a great secondary will still get destroyed if you don't have the pass rush. So yeah, this to me is silly. I think this rumor that Xavien Howard might be might be floated in trade rumors with the Seahawks is, look, we could probably make it work for at least a season or two, but I don't know if you would want to. I don't see it. I just don't see it. Those are my thoughts. He's a great player. He's the kind of player that I would actually be interested in trading for, potentially, because he still has really good years in front of him, but it's not going to work in these circumstances, guys. I don't see it. All right, see you guys later today. Peace out. Go Hawks. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below.